The haunting of Blackwood Manor. The arrival. The Blackwood family was known for their immense wealth and influence. Harold Blackwood, a shrewd businessman, decided it was time for a change of scenery. He purchased an enormous mansion on the outskirts of Ravenshade, a quiet, seemingly peaceful town surrounded by dense forests and misty hills. The mansion stood tall and imposing, its ancient stone walls echoing a forgotten history, draped in ivy and shadowed by towering oak trees. The family consisted of Harold, his wife Eleanor, their twin daughters Lily and Rose, and their youngest son, Samuel. The mansion, though grand, exuded a chilling atmosphere. The locals whispered about its dark past, but Harold dismissed them as superstitions of small-town folk. Unbeknownst to him, they were warnings. The first few days were uneventful. The family busied themselves with decorating and exploring the mansion's endless rooms and hallways. It wasn't until the third night that things began to change. The disappearances. Lily was the first to disappear. One morning, Eleanor went to wake her but found her bed neatly made and her room eerily cold. There was no sign of struggle, no note, nothing. Harold contacted the local police, but they were of little help, their faces pale and unwilling to speak. 2 nights later, Rose vanished. This time, the family heard her scream, a blood-curdling cry that echoed through the stone halls. They rushed to her room, only to find it empty, the window wide open with the curtains fluttering in the cold night breeze. Harold was frantic, his pride crumbling under the weight of fear. Eleanor was inconsolable, her sobs echoing through the silent mansion. Samuel became quiet, his once bright eyes now shadowed with fear. He spoke of seeing figures in the hallway at night, shadows that moved without bodies. Harold dismissed it as nightmares, but Eleanor felt the icy grip of dread. The final blow came when Samuel disappeared. His room was untouched, his toys scattered as if he were still playing with them. The mansion grew colder, the shadows darker. Eleanor fell into despair, her once vibrant spirit broken. Harold was hollow, his wealth and power meaningless in the face of his loss. A month passed, and news of the disappearances reached Daniel Blackwood, Harold's eldest son. He had been studying abroad and was returning home with his girlfriend, Emily. Upon arriving at the mansion, they found it in disarray. Harold was a shadow of his former self, his face gaunt and eyes sunken. Eleanor was bedridden, whispering incoherently about shadows and whispers. Determined to find his siblings, Daniel began investigating. He spoke to the locals, who were hesitant at first but eventually told him about the town's dark history. Ravenshade was cursed, they said. Every few decades, people would vanish without a trace, especially those who lived in Blackwood Manor. It was once the site of a devil-worshipping cult that practiced human sacrifices to appease a demon known as Malphas. The cult was supposedly eradicated, but rumors persisted that its followers still existed in secret, continuing the sacrifices to maintain their power. Daniel was skeptical but unnerved. He and Emily began exploring the mansion, searching for clues. In the basement, they found hidden passageways leading to underground chambers, walls etched with ancient symbols and dried blood. They realized that the mansion was built over the cult's sacrificial grounds. While exploring the tunnels, Daniel and Emily stumbled upon a chamber filled with robed figures chanting in an ancient language. In the center of the room was an altar stained with fresh blood. Daniel's heart sank as he recognized the clothes on the altar. They belonged to Samuel. Rage and sorrow overwhelmed him, but Emily pulled him back before they were noticed. They escaped the tunnels and called Daniel's childhood friends, Jacob, Sarah, and Michael, who rushed to their aid, armed and determined to fight the evil that had taken their friends. Together, they returned to the tunnels, prepared for battle. They confronted the cultists, fighting fiercely. The cultists were unnaturally strong, their eyes glowing with a crimson light as they chanted curses. One by one, Daniel's friends fell. Michael was impaled by a spear, his scream echoing through the stone chambers. Sarah was dragged into the shadows, her cries fading into silence. Final battle, only Daniel, Emily, and Jacob remained. They reached the altar room, where the cult leader stood, his face hidden under a hood. He spoke in a voice that echoed unnaturally, revealing himself as Malfa's incarnate. He taunted Daniel, showing him visions of his siblings' suffering souls trapped in darkness. Fueled by fury and love, Daniel charged at the demon. The battle was brutal. Malfa summoned shadows to fight for him, their ghostly claws slashing at the trio. Jacob fought valiantly but was mortally wounded, using his last breath to break the summoning circle, weakening the demon. Emily recited an exorcism she found in the mansion's library, the ancient words burning the demon's flesh. Daniel plunged a silver dagger into Malfa's chest, the demon shrieking as light erupted from the wound, consuming him. The chamber shook, the walls cracking as the cultists disintegrated into dust. The aftermath: the survivors barely escaped as the tunnels collapsed, sealing the evil forever. Above ground, dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight illuminating the mansion's dark windows. The curse was lifted, the shadows dissipating. But the cost was high. Jacob was buried in the town's cemetery alongside the other victims. Daniel mourned his family, but their bodies were never found. Emily stayed by his side, helping him rebuild his life. They sold the mansion, ensuring no one would live there again. Before leaving Ravenshade, Daniel visited the ruins one last time. He heard faint laughter, his siblings' voices whispering a final goodbye. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered back, "Rest in peace." Hand in hand, Daniel and Emily walked away, the wind carrying the echoes of the past. The haunting of Blackwood Manor finally at an end. Whispering shadows, years later, the townspeople claimed they could still hear whispers coming from the ruins at night, ghostly voices calling out in sorrow. No one dared to go near. Ravenshade remained cursed, the memory of the devil's cult lingering, forever haunting the town.